Okay. Good. Okay. I will say good evening, good afternoon. My name is Rola Hardal. I'm a political scientist and currently I'm a research fellow at Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. Before that, I used to teach at two Palestinian universities. And it's enough about me as a moderator. I'm glad to be here today and to moderate this evening and this debate and discussion with three colleagues. And I will start by introducing them. Then we will have three rounds of questions. I will give each of you a few minutes to answer the questions, and then we will end, I think, the last 25, 30 minutes with open discussion. So I will I will start with introducing our contributors for today evening. Thabit Abu Ras. He's a member of a Land for All, likewise also Oren. For the transparency, I need to say that I'm also active and board member in Land for All. We are speaking about an Israeli-Palestinian peace movement. Dr. Abu Ras is a graduate of the University of Arizona. He is the co-CEO of the Abraham Funds Initiatives, which promotes equality and Jewish-Arab partnership in Israel. He is an expert in political geography. He is a prominent voice in promoting the rights of the Bedouins of the Negev, and he teaches the Nakba in Israeli schools. Professor Oren Yiftach teaches also political geography and urban planning at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, and holds the Hearst Chair for Urban Studies at the same university. He served as a chairman of the B'Tselem organization, and is a founding member of Land for All, the Israeli-Palestinian peace movement. He has worked as a planner and for the unrecognized Bedouin communities, and he has several books, to mention only the last one of his books, Power and Land, From Ethnocracy to Creeping Apartheid. And our last contributor, Joseph Avisar. Joseph Avisar, do I spell your name correctly, Joseph or Yosef?
Joseph in Hebrew, Joseph in English.
Okay. Yosef Avisar is an attorney practicing law in Los Angeles. He is the founder of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, which advocates for a mutual fair government for Israelis and Palestinians. He is the author of the book Peace, A Case for an Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, and the director of the movie Surviving Peace, an American Israeli of Iraqi background. He travels frequently to Israel and Palestine. And today we are going to speak with our three guests about confederation as a solution, but not only. We are going to speak about what solutions, what are the paths that we can suggest and discuss in order to get out from the current situation that we have since the failure of the Oslo agreements and the two states solution between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And especially now at these days, according the changes, the political major changes that we see inside the Israeli society, as well as the actually stuck situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I will start with the first question, and I will ask you all to have, or to take maybe 5 minutes to answer it, please. And I will ask you actually, why a confederation? Why not to start to promote again a kind of two-state solution, or maybe advanced or different kind of two-state solutions, or maybe other solutions? You know, I think all of you know about the one democratic state solution, the binational suggestions that many scholars and political activists speak about. So why confederation? And what kind of confederation? I mean, I know that Thabit, Oren, and you, Joseph, you speak about when you imagine in your political imagination a confederation, you speak about different kinds of confederation. And besides, the last part of my question, what are the principles, the human, legal, national, political, historical principles that your vision of confederation based on? I will start with you, Joseph, please.
What we are proposing is a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine, from the river to the sea. That includes Gaza, West Bank, Israel, and Jerusalem. 14 million people, a democratic government that will be elected by the people of Israel and Palestine, 14 million people, with 300 parliament districts, represented by 300 parliament members, with a president and vice president. One will be Israeli, one will be Palestinian. Whoever gets the most votes will be president. Whoever gets the second number of votes will be vice president, and they will rotate after 2 years. This would be the only legitimate government in Israel Palestine, because it will be elected by the people of Israel Palestine. The Israeli government is not a legitimate government in Israel Palestine because it is not elected by all the people in Israel Palestine. It is elected by Israelis only. It controls the whole area, but it is not elected by the people of Israel Palestine. Palestinian governments are not legitimate either. They are not elected by the people of Israel Palestine, and they haven't been elected even by the Palestinians for over 16 years. What we are proposing is a common government, a democracy based on legitimacy, based on democratic principles, based on a constitution with equality, one person, one vote, with 300 parliament members who will have the necessary political power to demand peace, because the Israeli and the Palestinian governments have not been able to give peace. They are failed government, they are illegitimate government. So it makes the most sense to have a common government for the people of Palestine and Israel together. We recognize the power of the Israeli and the Palestinian government. We recognize that they cannot be dismantled. Therefore, we say that the common government will pass legislation, and we will need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members to vote yes on the legislation. And once they do that, it will be submitted to the Palestinian and Israeli governments, and they will be given a veto power. But if they do not veto the legislation, then that will be the law of the land. We believe in people a lot more than land. We believe in peace, and we believe that this will be the best way for the people of Israel and Palestine to deal with every issue. We do not suggest how to resolve issues. It is presumptuous for us to say two-state or one state, or we need the representative of people of Israel and Palestine to decide all these issues. And they will have the legitimacy and the democracy to decide all these issues. And they will be able to impose their political power on the existing government.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to say that I have a lot of questions and things to say as a reaction of your vision, but we will wait until the end of the session. And I think my colleagues Thabit and Oren will start also maybe to say something about your suggestion or mission or vision by answering the same question regarding their political imagination in the context of land of all. Thabit, would you like please to answer also my question?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I believe that before we are going to the procedure, before we are talking about election in a democratic society, in democratic state, we should try to answer, where is Israel, where is Palestine? So what we are suggesting, our confederation actually proposal is suggesting answering to all issues postponed by Oslo Agreement. Jerusalem, refugees, settlements, and borders, one homeland that shouldn't be split as in Kurdistan, other places. This is what we are suggesting according. We are talking about two independent states, sovereign and independent states on the 1967 border, with an open border. With an open border in the homeland, and I will say a few things about the homeland. We are suggesting actually a proposal that talking about democracy, human rights, and law and order in both states in the homeland. Actually, we are suggesting free movement. It's so important free movement, and not to go to the traditional two-state solution that talked. We are here, they are there. Well, I'm a Palestinian citizen of the State of Israel. I am here and I am there too. So besides the free movement, we are suggesting also not correcting injustice by doing injustice to other people. This is the pillars, actually, the main pillars of our suggestion. I would like to say that the traditional two-state solution cannot work today, cannot be implemented because of a series of changes on the ground. And we can talk about that. We can talk about the reality right now today in the homeland that we should share Palestinians and Jews. And the partitioning, actually, it's a principle that accepted by the international community. It's accepted by most of the Palestinians, most of the Israelis. So self-determination, okay, for both people is so important in two different independent and sovereign states. Yet it's not enough. We have to take in our consideration the mix, the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. It's becoming mixed demography, full mixed demography, with majority here and there for Palestinians, for Israelis. We have to take the consideration the joint economy today and the issue of major resources, the issue of lack of water, scarcity of water, hydropolitics, and I can talk about a lot of things, but sometimes people really don't take in their consideration even a very small things that's so important for the people who live in the homeland. People don't know, for example, that Israel is controlling the border of the homeland, okay? And people like Abu Mazen, president of Palestine, Palestinian Authority, and Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, both are holding an ID, okay? This ID, Palestinian Authority ID, it's in Hebrew and in Arabic. It's not in English, okay? It's in Hebrew and in Arabic. I can add to that the transportation in the homeland. I can add to that even the companies, they are working in the same area. So we have to think about the homeland, which is people, both people, Palestinians, Israelis, have sense of belonging and sense of ownership over the whole area, okay, over the whole area. So we have to consider that also. We have to consider the fact that the people actually have deep-rooted, deep-rooted, I will say, attachment to the land, and we cannot detach people, Palestinians, from even the coast of Israel today, and settlers, Jewish settlers who live in the settlements. Yet I have to say that settlements are illegal. According to our plan, it's illegal. Yet we believe that Jews and Palestinians have the right to live in the homeland. We have to agree that both parties, Israel and Palestine, independent Palestine and independent Israel, should agree in this issue. This is what we are suggesting. One state, I don't think it's going to work, at least now, with so much hatred, with so much mistrust between the people. So we are not considering it right now as a solution. Maybe 50 years, 100 years, for the coming generations, they can agree. We have to start something. So I will generalize, I will conclude and say, two-state solution, the traditional one, it's not enough. We have to think about still self-determination for both people, plus free movement in the homeland for all people.
Thank you, Thabit. Oren,
May I respond?
I'm sorry.
excuse me?
May I respond?
No, sorry, Joseph, not yet. Let me continue and give Oren the opportunity to speak, and later on you can respond when I come, when I refer.
I thought we're going to have equal time.
Okay, you are having equal time.
Well, if Oren is going to speak, then it's not going to be equal time. They're going to be speaking two people, twice as much time, and me having just half of their time.
Okay, next time I will give you more time for the following questions.
No, I think I should be given an opportunity to respond, because he spoke presumably for the same amount of time I did. So I don't think it's fair to give Oren an opportunity to pile on what he said. I should be allowed to respond to what Thabit said.
Okay.
I'll speak shortly and you respond to both of us. It's better. And with an equal amount of time, because I will complete.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. I think it's.
Yeah, I think Thabit said most of the things that we wanted to say. I just want to add 2 or 3 more, with, of course, thanking IPC and thanking everybody that came for the opportunity. I think the two confederational movements can work together to spread this idea, which is probably the only outlet of the current no through road cul-de-sac abyss that we are all standing in Israel Palestine. So you see the 2 maps behind me. These are the 2 souvenirs I got from East Jerusalem, Al-Quds, from a shop. Look at them. One is saying Palestine, one is saying Israel. This is a critical, it's not just symbolic, it's a critical understanding of how the 2 nations see the land. This is why our confederation is also called 2 states, 1 homeland. And this is the idea why the land cannot be partitioned. Cannot be partitioned because the 2 peoples feel attached to the whole homeland. On the other hand, it cannot be united into 1 state either. Okay, it cannot be partitioned also because we can see now 30 years or even 75 years of failure to partition Palestine. We have to learn from history. Terrible failure at a terrible cost, mostly to Palestinians, but also to Israelis. So 2-state solution, as it stands at the moment, it's a carte blanche legitimacy for Israel to continue and colonize Palestine. And we'll get to it later on with the role of the diasporas. But when everybody says two-state solution and on the ground Israel is colonizing Palestine, this is disaster, okay? On the other hand, one-state solution cannot work either because Israel has the right to exist as a sovereign state. Israel is a UN-accepted state, and so should Palestine be. And no nation in the world in the UN era has given up the right for self-determination. Nor the Jews, nor the Palestinians will give up that right. So the only solution we have in the textbook, in the lexicon of political solutions, is a confederation, which two states that come together with some joint governance, joint management of the space. This is what we've seen also in similar situations like Bosnia, like Norway and Sweden, like the European Union, like Canada. There's some failure of confederation as well. It's a complicated solution, but it's the only one possible. Neither one state, nor two states. This is the only way for peace.
Thank you, Oren. Joseph, please.
All right, first I'd like to respond to Tabit, because Tabit said before we can create a common government, we need to have a border. First of all, we do not oppose any other solution. We do not oppose any other vision. We are not saying that before you create the borders, that we would have to wait until we create a common government until we have a border. We're not saying that. We are saying it can be done simultaneously. But let's talk about really what Tabit is saying. The two-state solution has been proposed since 1947 and has come about since 1947. They have tried to make it since time and time again. And not only did it fail, it brought more violence and more death and destruction on the Palestinian and the Israeli people. It brought wars with the Arab nations. So to say, before we think of anything else, let's continue with the same thing that failed again and again and again, doesn't make sense. But we say, go ahead, think about creating a border. Quite frankly, you're not going to succeed. To me, personally, it sounds like a poison pill. It's say, well, let's wait until we continue with the borders that are not going to succeed. And until then, we wait. Wait until when? Why wait? Until these two failed governments, the Israeli and the Palestinian governments, that brought us so much death and destruction, that are really illegitimate governments that do not represent the people of Israel and Palestine, will decide on borders when they haven't done it in 75 years? That doesn't make sense. But we say, go ahead. You can continue to negotiate as much as you want. You can agree on whatever we want. Secretly, we know you're not going to ever agree. The Israeli government and the Palestinian government will never agree to the 67 border as your organization suggests. This is the most right-wing government, but all the Israeli governments were all Zionist governments. They never agreed to the 67 borders. So, but we say, go ahead. We are not saying before we do our formula for peace, wait for something else. We say, well, let's do it simultaneously. Now, this is not a one-state solution. One state needs to have one government. In order to have one state, you need to have one government. We have three governments. We have the Israeli government that is very strong politically, economically, and militarily. We have the PA that is also a government, not as strong as the Israeli government, and we have Hamas government. In order to create one state, you need to have one government. How are you going to dismantle the Israeli government and the Palestinian government and the Hamas government? You cannot. We are not proposing one state. We are proposing a government for the whole area while the Israeli and the Palestinian governments exist. And we're giving them a veto power. But since they failed so much and they caused so much death and destruction on the people of Israel and Palestine, we say we need to have the permission from the people themselves, the Palestinians and the Israeli people, to have our own initiative and to have our own election and to create our own democracy based on our own vision and on our own constitution. Now, you mentioned self-determination. We are not against self-determination. If we create a common government, the Palestinians will still continue to have their self-determination, and the Israelis will continue to have their self-determination. They will still have their own government. The Israelis will have their own government. Our vision of peace does not contradict self-determination at all. In fact, it enhances self-determination. Furthermore, if the two-state solution is the right solution, our vision, our parliament members, if we elect parliament members, Israelis and Palestinians together, they will have the legitimacy, they will have the broad support of their people. It's not, with all due respect, it's not people that self-appoint themselves to say, let's have a two-state solution. It will be parliament members who are elected by the people of Israel and Palestine, who have the legitimacy. If they determine that it is necessary to have two-state, they will have the power, they will have the legitimacy, they will have the vote to create a two-state solution. Now, why is it that we need to be subcontractors for the Israeli and the Palestinian governments? Why is it that we have to limit our vision to the failed vision of the Israeli and the Palestinian governments? We can come up with a different vision. It may be that the vision is two-state, but they will have completely different vision. The purpose is to make peace. It's not to be subcontractors for the Israeli or the Palestinian illegitimate failed government and to follow their failed vision of two states.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I will refer back before I come back to you with my second question. Joseph, I will start again with Thabit, and will ask you, taking into consideration the current situation on both sides, and I will describe it very briefly. On the Palestinian side, we are speaking about a very deep political, ideological split between the main political actors, Hamas and Fatah, and lacking of a national strategy toward the whole space between the river and the sea. I mean, from the Palestinian point of view, having a very non-powerful situation of the Palestinian people, not only internally, but also internationally, 30 years after the experience of the PA. On the other side, you know very well what's going on in Israel and inside the Israeli political system, and what kind of government we have now, which represents also maybe a half of the Israeli population. We are speaking about nationalist, ultra-nationalist, radical government. How, taking into consideration this situation on both sides, how do you imagine achieving actually any solution if we speak about confederation according to the vision of land for all, or maybe according to the vision of other organizations and initiatives? What do we need to have on the national level on both sides in order to start promoting, achieving a kind of solution. And what we need also to have on the international level in order to start going out from the current situation toward any kind of solution, according to your vision, land for all, a kind of confederation.
Thank you, Rula. It's really sometimes so tough to go and argue about basic things, okay? Going back to the people, it's so important. Democracy is so important. And we know what the Israeli democracy did with us. We are ignoring the international law, the international resolutions, okay? Well, the fact combining all the time Israeli government and Palestinian government, and Joseph, I skimmed your book, and there is some myth and misconceptions there, and the mistaken some assumptions. I can read it to you, and you cannot all the time blaming the Palestinian, the occupied people, and you are put it in the same level with the occupiers. No, Israel is not obeying the international law. Israel is taking us, all of us.
But that's not true. What you say is not true. It's not true. Can you read? Can you read? You say you can read. Can you please read it?
I'm willing to cite.
Yeah, please do.
Read that
paragraph that you, because
I would love.
That's not true what you're saying.
For example, you are saying most Arabs and Jews in Israel and Palestine are secular. Okay, I would like to argue with you about that. Many Palestinians fluent in Hebrew and many Jews fluent in Arabic. Less than 2% of the Jewish know Arabic really. From where you brought many Jews?
You're reading the different thing from what you're accusing.
No, I'm talking.
You said
about I'm talking about the book's piece, a case of
I know what you're talking about, but it doesn't support your claim at all.
When you talk, both governments are unable to come up with a political solution. Come on, Arabs already in 2002 suggested the Arab initiatives. Israel is saying no.
I'm not speaking about suggestions. I am speaking about results.
Results. Israel is actually putting obstacles to our results. Israel is taking us to deepening apartheid now.
I agree.
Yeah. Deepening apartheid. Okay. Look what's going on right now in the territories. And you cannot really put both sides in the same level. There is occupiers.
I did not put both sides on the same level.
Joseph, could you give me, please, the right to talk?
Sorry.
You cannot interrupt me every.
Okay, I apologize.
After every single. So I have a lot of arguments about your the Israel is going right now to more deepening Jewish supremacy. We have to get rid of Jewish supremacy first of all in the homeland. And without borders, you are ignoring borders. Without borders, you are saying you didn't mention even any borders. Give me another example of independent state around the world without a border. Israel should, border will decide for us who is an Israeli, who is a Palestinian, first of all, okay? Will help us solve some questions. Israel is not putting borders. Now the fascist, the right-wing fascist in Israel is taking us to annexation of territories, more territories they want, okay? And they plan for us. Honestly, I'm telling you, I'm afraid another Nakba, but they don't want to see Palestinians. They are in the government now. They don't want to see Palestinians west of the Jordanian River, okay? So actually, they are preparing for a Nakba. Those are in the Israeli government, while the corrupted Palestinian regime, yes, corrupted regime, at least in terms of politics, talking about two-state solution, talking about peace, and serving Israel as even there is a military, a security cooperation with Israel. Honestly, if you ask Rula what we should have first of all in the Palestinian side, democratic election. We should have different leadership, okay? Different leadership in both sides, not only in the Israeli side. But unfortunately, the process in Israel is taking us to a very dangerous place, okay? And I believe that we should, we are not gonna solve the conflict without taking in our consideration all Palestinians, not only the puppet regime in Ramallah, Abu Mazen. Okay, we have to talk about Palestinians in the diaspora, I would say. Okay, those millions of people who live outside of Palestine, we should guarantee the right of return, refugees return to their homeland. Okay, I understand it's tough for Israel to accept refugees inside Israel prior 1967. We should do that gradually. Okay, we should do that in agreement. Okay, so still, I believe that two independent and sovereign states is must for a period of 50 years, 100 years. Okay, I believe that one day it's going to be different reality here. But right now, what we see, what Zionism, Hawara Zionism, I will call it, okay, it's doing for us, that prevailing and controlling the Israeli government is now kicking Palestinians from their villages in Area C, at least, okay? And we have to stop that. The international community should interfere and stop Israel from continue with deepening the apartheid, and again to reaffirm the rights of Palestinians to their independent and sovereign state.
Thank you, Thabit. Oren, two things, please. I know that you would like to respond to some of the points of Joseph. And besides, I would like to ask you, as one who wrote and still writing and speaking about or describing the whole situation in this geopolitical unit from the river to the sea, describing the settler colonial apartheid, systematic discrimination, and racial separation between the two national groups. You wrote a lot about this, and you have a very clear opinion. Would you also try to refer to my question according to your knowledge and your analysis regarding the situation?
There are two issues here. And your question is more substantive and what Joseph was saying. I'd like to first respond to Joseph that the proposal of IPC is procedural. It's about process. It's about having that parliament, that president, so many constituencies, so many powers, 55%. But what Thabit was saying, I agree with him, our conflict is substantive, it's geographical, it's violent, it's not procedural. This is like putting the icing on the cake before we have the cake, right? Once there is a resolution, once Bezalel Smotrich or Emmanuel or Bibi Netanyahu decide that there will be equality, then we can argue about 300, this president, that house. This is why I think the idea of IPC, of direct election, digital election, all these things are creative and are important, but they have to come when there is a process that resolve the concrete issues. And the concrete issues, there is no other way to resolve them all around the world, but with international law. International law, whether it's Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Canada, South Africa, all the conflict areas on the world, this is a framework. This is why border is important, Joseph. This is why it has to be the green line. The green line is an international border agreed, and you can say that Netanyahu will not agree to it or Trump will not agree to it. This is the line. The key is how to manage it. And if we say that Israelis can live in Palestine and Palestinians can live in Israel, the border becomes less important if it goes on that hill or on that hill. And so our confederation movement is the stretching of international law, the most possible way to have two sovereign entities, but to have them uniting the homeland in economy, in movement, in management of the environment, in the overall good of the people. And if there is an agreement of a joint parliament with 300 seats, I'll be happy about it. But when we have to tackle the issues now, they're very concrete issues. They're not procedural issues. Now, from my research around the world, responding to your question, colonial situation like in Israel Palestine, colonial and national, it's not only colonial, it's not only national. But until now, most people in the world, I'm sure all the people here almost look at it as a national, nation-to-nation dispute. but that's not the only aspect. The colonial aspect is very, very important. So when you see Serbia colonizing Bosnia, right? Or when you're saying the Anglo-Canadians colonizing Quebec, or when you see other situations like this, you see that a confederation allows the entities to become more equal rather than to partition it, because the populations are mixed, the people have the same homeland, and this is where we decolonize around the world. All around the world, the settler colonial white people have stayed. All around the world, they've stayed. But how they stayed is the issue here. And I think here, allowing Palestinian self-determination, Jewish Israeli self-determination in a common homeland, only confederation can produce this peace.
Thank you, Oren. Joseph, you are speaking about actually keeping the two Israeli and Palestinian governments and produce something above them or something else. I don't get the point, first of all, if I ask you specifically about your suggestion of the confederation, who is going to have to, or to get, how are you going to get the permission from the two people who lives under national conflict since years, but not only, as Oren said, national conflict, but some other features and aspects. Who's going to give you the permission to get to the people from both sides in order to elect the shared government, let us say? And besides, I would like to ask you about some other important principles. What about the power dynamics that we have since 74 years between the Palestinians and the Israelis? How can
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What about what?
About the power dynamics between the Israelis and the Palestinians. What about
Can you explain that? What do you mean? What about that?
If the two governments now, you describe them as failed government, how you imagine that these two governments are going to work with the shared government of the confederation? If they don't, if these two governments now and two people accordingly also, they have feelings of hate, of anger, of fear from each other, lacking of trust, how can they work together in a shared government? If they don't succeed to have at least negotiations now between the representatives of the two people? What about the Israeli continuous politics of expansion and expansion of the settlements? What about the Jewish supremacy against the Palestinians and regarding the whole space of land? How are you tackling all of these issues before speaking about building a joint government?
All right, thank you, Roland. First of all, I should tell you that we are actually simulating this. All of these issues that you are presenting, we are simulating this every month, twice a month. And all these issues that you are raising, we are simulating, we are showing how these things actually will work. But let me respond, first of all, to both Oren and Tabit. At some point, you have to accept responsibility for the failure of the Israeli and the Palestinian governments. You have to accept, you have to come after 75 years. Look, if you were a plumber coming to someone's home for 75 years, not being able to fix the toilet, you have to accept responsibility and you have to accept another system. You cannot say, no, I am a good plumber after 75 years, okay? Zionism is a huge problem. It brought in the politicization of religion into the area of Israel and Palestine in 1897. It is a failed ideology that brought about a violence between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And we have to identify that. Zionism is a problem. And Zionism should not be the philosophy or the ideology that controls this conflict. We have to think of completely different ideology. Now, regarding we are not proposing that you abandon your ideology of a border. We say, go ahead and continue. But it seems like you are saying, well, we first need to have borders, and until then, we're going to oppose your ideology of having a common government. Now, Oren, you said, well, that's icing on the cake. Actually, it's the other way around. We need to have what you're suggesting, the political issues resolutions that you're suggesting. To me, it sounds like what kind of furnitures we are going to have, what kind of curtains we are going to have after we have the building. But you don't have a building. We are saying we need a structure. We need an infrastructure. We need a government that will have legitimacy. And the legitimacy would come from the people of Israel Palestine, not from the Israeli government, not from the Palestinian government, which I remind you again are failed illegitimate governments. So to go to them and be an advisory board and say, well, we should have an open border, we should have Jerusalem for everyone, it may be a good idea, but not under the existing circumstances of the last 75 years. Now, Rula, you asked me, who is going to give you permission? The people of Israel and Palestine don't need permission. They own themselves. They own their destiny. Or do you want them to get permission from failed governments? From governments that gave them violence? They can create their own government, whether or not they get permission from the Israeli or the Palestinian government. We can have this election online. We don't need permission. We've done it in the past, not very successful, I admit, but you don't need permission. You don't need permission to live free. You don't need permission to live in democracy. The question that you asked is the exact same question that came about when democracy came about. And someone said, king gonna give you permission? You don't need permission from the king. You own your own life. We are the people that want to live free, and we want to live in a democracy, and we do not need permission from those governments that fail to give us all of them.
Actually, I don't mean permission. I mean the agency, the legitimacy. Usually, we know that when organizations do elections, they do different kind of elections. But when we speak about people, about nations, about states, we have political system, and we have structure of this political system, and this political system and the legal system decide about what kind of elections we have and the whole consideration. That was actually my question.
Yeah, you have illegitimate governments that created a system, and I am proposing to have legitimacy that comes from election to give the 14 million people in Israel, Palestine, excluding minors, the right to vote. And the legitimacy comes from the election itself, from the right, from the election, from the voting. Now,
Joseph, let me just have one sentence. One sentence. Jumla wahda. Now, Jumla wahda. If you ask the people now of Israel, the government is very legitimate. You cannot impose on them, telling them the government is not legitimate. They will not believe you.
Oren, yeah, you can ask my mother and she'll tell you I am the most handsome person in the world. That doesn't make me handsome, okay? They control.
We're talking political.
Listen, they control the Palestinians. The Palestinians have to obey their laws. The Palestinians have to obey the Supreme Court decisions of Israel, and they're not allowed to vote. So you
I know, but we're talking about Israel, not about Palestine.
Oren and Joseph, please let us continue.
In a legitimate government, The people decide who the government is. But in Israel Palestine, it's the other way around. The government of Israel decide who the people are, and the Palestinians are not allowed to vote. So therefore, you can ask the Israelis. Of course, they'll tell you it's a legitimate government, but it's not legitimate based on any objective standards. Because
Yeah, but you can't.
them the right to vote.
Give them,
Okay.
you ask them to vote for another government and they will say our government is legitimate. That's what I'm saying.
Fine.
Political reality. Yeah.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
but I'm
And
saying that
besides, Joseph, and I will
I
ask,
want to have an
ask
opportunity to
also Oren,
respond.
and just a minute.
I need
I
an
will ask
opportunity to
also Oren
respond.
and
No, you
Thabit
cannot
to
stop
report
me.
to this
I
point.
need to, okay.
Joseph, please, just a minute. When you speak about the people and you repeat it, you speak about 14 million people in historic Palestine, Eretz Israel, okay, Jewish and Palestinians. And I will ask you another question, and we will go with this question too, and I will expand it and close with this round of questions. Who decides about who are the people? Who is the demos here? Actually, the Palestinian and the Israeli one. Are we speaking about only the Palestinian people who live in historic Palestine? Oh, and then what about all of the other million Palestinians who live in the diaspora? And besides, just a minute before you answer, what about the Jewish people who have the right of return automatically, without being citizens of Israel? When we speak about the Israeli people, are we speaking about all of the Jewish people according to the Zionist ideology, or we speak only about the Israeli people? And also here
So I am speaking about
the egalitarian right of Palestinian people and Jewish people. חוק השבות מול or against the law of return, the right of return of the Palestinian people.
Okay. I am speaking of 14 million people in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. I'm not speaking about Jews all over the world. I'm not speaking about Israelis all over the world. I'm not speaking about Palestinians all over the world, because they don't have the right to vote. They're not part of the districts. The Palestinian governments have not given them the right to vote. The Israeli government does not give them a right to vote. Whenever that question is rising, it's basically, again, a poison pill to try to derail. The people of Israel and Palestine are allowed to create their own government. They don't need to be dependent on people all over the world.
Good. Okay. Actually, I cannot agree with you, because I'm very well informed about the situation here in Palestine and Israel, not only as a citizen of this place, but also as a political science.
I'd love to know, what is it that you do not like about?
When we speak about the Palestinian people, we
What
speak
is it
about
that you
all of the
disagree with?
Palestinian people. When we speak about Israeli Jewish, we cannot speak only about Israeli Jewish people. We speak about the whole Jewish people in the world.
Why not?
But anyway, we will
Why
continue.
not? Why not? Why create obstacles for peace?
The reality.
Ideological obstacles for peace.
Okay, I will refer back to you.
Why-
Thank you for now. Thank you for now. Just to start closing this interesting discussion, I will refer now to Thabit. Please, Thabit, personal attitude, thoughts, points that you would like to share with us according to the discussion here and according to your experience during the last years dealing and being active in Land for All. What do you think? What do you feel now? Would you share with us your position now regarding the current situation and maybe also the future?
Yeah, thank you, Rula. Unfortunately, some people probably not connected to the Israeli reality, to our reality. We have to start by saying that Joseph talked about Zionism as a problem. Well, it's not. You said that, but we don't have to ask about a permission for democracy. There are a lot of contradictions here. Israel cannot be a democratic regime as long as there is an occupation. First of all, you know what? More than that, deeper than that, Jewish and democratic state, it's an oxymoron. It's not going to work together. 75 years, we had leftover democracy.
I
It's a
totally
democratic.
agree. I totally-
Joseph, you cannot keep cutting me, please. I can cut you. Let us
Okay,
just, please. It's an oxymoron with the nation state law that for the nation state law, I am an invisible person, okay? Developing the country for its Jewish people, okay? I'm not a Jew. I don't want to be a Jew. I am a Palestinian, a proud Palestinian. Still, this is my homeland before it's my country, okay? Before it's my state. Yes, I have dual identity. I am, first of all, I'm Palestinian, proud Palestinians, and I am Israeli citizen, okay? Now, there is a lot of contradictions that start with Zionism, with the establishment of the state. We have to fix that. So yes, I need a permission to have a democracy, to be part of the democracy. Look at what's going on right now in Israel. 29 weeks, many Jews are taking the streets, strike, calling for democracy, and they are. I'm supporting this movement, the protest, the so-called protest. However, they are sticking still with the composition of the judges' election committee, or small things, while we know that the main goal of this government is try to change the reality between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. It's gonna be deepening the apartheid within the states. It's preventing from my own people to have their own independent and sovereign state. Okay, this is our reality, daily reality. You are talking, you know what, you have a good suggestions even in your plan, but it's a procedure. It's far from now. Let's start define where is Palestine, where is Israel, where is the border. First of all, talking about human rights, okay, who is really opposing human rights in Israel? Palestinians don't have any human rights under Israeli occupation, first of all. And then, unfortunately, Palestinian Authority also is helping Israeli occupiers in this issue. Honestly, we have to go back and try to normalize our life. Just to think, when we talk about democracy, to think about your country, other countries, to learn from the experience of other people, other democratic movements around the world. So hopefully, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit sick. So hopefully we will see something else in Israel, fighting together for free of Palestine. Israel cannot, we should disconnect Palestine from Israel. First of all, we should, with mutual respect, to the mutual recognition and so forth. Sorry.
Thank you, Thabit. Thank you. Salamtak. Oren, can we, or should we?
I want to stress, yeah.
Should we
And
go
then we'll
back
have a round of.
should we go back to the principles? Should we go also to speak about?
Yeah, I want to. Yeah.
Or just
I
a minute,
want to-
or please, before speaking about the next steps and before speaking about solutions, maybe we should not only speak, because we spoke about the principles today that we would like to ensure both people. Maybe we should also remember that we need a kind of reconciliation and mutual recognition of the historic maybe suffering of the two people, and not only speaking about their rights of self-determination and sharing one homeland and the right to live in democratic reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why we said that, Israel is already recognized. The Palestinians recognize Israel, and Israel haven't recognized Palestine. There's such asymmetry. This is the colonial situation, right? So we said in our solution, let's recognize Palestine in the international borders. This is the Maginot Line. This is the fortified line for justice. It's not historically sacred. All borders around the world, the result of war and colonialism. At the moment, this is the last line of defense before full apartheid. This is why Yosef is so important to have border, but the management of the border, as I said before, is a confederation. The two people can use the same space. Like Belgium, for example, now, the Walloons and the Flemish, they have two regions, they have joined Brussels, like Jerusalem, and they move freely around the place, they use the same economy, etc., etc. I want to say also, very important, the idea of imposing or going through the people. I mean, there is some attraction in it, but it's totally removed from any possibility. I can tell you that the Israeli government is disallowing A, B, and C. They're not even allowed to raise a Palestinian flag. They don't allow to do a Palestinian blocking a road. They will allow people to vote for another parliament. No government in the world. We're living in the actual existing political system of the world. No government in the world will allow another government to come around them. They will veto every decision. It's just not even starting point. What we are trying to say is to build it from below, to have joint institutions by agreement. It's not easy because the Jews are very strong now and the Palestinians are weak, but for the long term, like in Bosnia, like in Northern Ireland, like in those long protracted situations, they did come together to have environment, economic, military, some things of cooperation that made these places go from war to peace. By imposing a government from above, it's a non-starter, I would say. But I would like to say to the IPC people, come and join our movement. We can actually integrate this idea as a later stage. The idea is good to have direct election to a joint body, but by agreement with the two peoples that will not give up their right. Why would Palestinians now vote for a joint government when they don't even have a right for self-determination? Hoping that this government will decide A and B and C in their favor. No, they have their rights first, and then we can build another layer, another story in the building. And it's not true, Joseph, that the building is not existing. The building is existing. The land is there. The people are there. International law is there. It's just that the building is distorted. We want to make it straight and equal for all these people. And last sentence, I want to say that the diaspora is very important. You people are very important. And if we look at the most important agent of creating apartheid Israel Palestine, or maybe equal first pay the Jewish settlers and the religious parties, but equal with them is the United States. You're talking about responsibility, Joseph. The United States has responsibility for what's happening. It vetoed Israel in the UN something like 50 times. It vetoed Israel in the UN more than it vetoed for the US. So this is a part of the American empire. Underneath the boot of that exist the Palestinians. So I ask all you people, to join, I suppose, the idea that a confederation is a way forward to ensure the rights of both people and influence the American politics about it. Influence America not to support blindly Israel occupying the Palestinian and having some weak condemnations about new settlements or about all the racist policies. Have the United States doing what it did against Russia, what it does against other countries in the world that intervene or contradict international law. Do the same, be consistent, and then we have the path to peace.
Thank you, Oren. Joseph,
let me respond.
A discussion with you. What do you think about the suggestion of Oren? I like it because Land of Or has all the principles and values that we can agree about, both people, Palestinian as well as Jewish Israelis. And you have the other pillar of building a real confederation.
Yeah, well, the question is, what comes first? And I found it very ironic that Oren would say that what we are suggesting is not realistic. What we are suggesting has not been put to the test, okay? So you don't know if it's realistic or not. But what you are suggesting has been put to the test. Creating two-state solution has been put to the test and resulted in violence, resulted in horrendous results. So to say, what we are saying is unrealistic is itself unrealistic. So the question, I believe that your solution is basically the way you You basically are saying, let's have the Israeli and the Palestinian people swallow a poison pill. And after, which is the two-state, which is all the things that we agreed upon, the group of people, let's have them swallow that poison pill first, and then we'll create a common government. And I say, no, let's have the common government, which will avoid the necessity to deal with all these issues that are self-created, that are created by the government of Israel, the government of Palestine, that are by themselves are obstacles to peace, so I would love for you to join us if you accept the idea that a common government is supreme and it has to come first. And by the way, I'm not speaking about superior common government. I'm speaking about a common government that gives veto to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Actually, I have to say that I don't agree with your description of the two initiatives, but we will leave it for now. Maybe we can discuss it in other opportunities. We have about only 15 minutes left, and I would like to have maybe 3 short questions from our audience. And I see some hands here. If they are relevant, I can start with them. Shlomo or Nasser or Nasir.
Go ahead, Shlomo.
Okay.
Okay. Can I talk?
It's pronounced Nasir, but go ahead, Shlomo. My friend Shlomo is going to go first.
Yoela Harshefi's hand was up.
Okay, let's start with Shlomo.
Okay, first of all, talking about the failure of the government, I don't think the Israeli government is failed. I think it depends on what is the goal. The goal of the Israeli government was to take the land and get rid of the Arabs. They have not failed in this. They are doing it pretty efficiently. The difference, there is a little problem. I love your solution, Owen and Tabit, and it's just that it is in a way the best version of two-state solution still, and therefore it has the same problem that Owen mentioned, that it is in a way legitimate. We continue the same process of colonialism in a West form of ethnic cleansing. The advantage of the IPC, as I see it, and I would love to combine the two, by the way, don't get me wrong. The advantage is that it actually responds to something that you said, talking about, we start with human rights, essentially. I mean, this kind of confederation is really starting with equality and human rights. And then we build something that will be like a government or whatever. I have no illusions. The moment we will pass the 1,000 people, the Israeli government will not just veto, they will kill it in one way or another. So I don't have any illusions. But on the other hand, in your way of doing it, which is very good, again, it has the no hope that the two-state solution used to have. But I don't see any discrepancy between what you do and what we do. I'm just the nice thing about what we do is that we start talking to each other, Israeli and Palestinians and Jews and non-Jews. We try to kind of talk together and get to the same state of mind. So yeah, that's my little thing.
Thank you. Nasir?
Thank you, Rola. Thank you for what you've done. Thabet and Oren, it's a good time to see you again. I enjoyed your last time you came, and good to see you. Dr. Thabet, I've read a lot of what you wrote, and I admire you and respect you a lot for your work. So my first question, I have a new mic, so if you can't hear me, let me know. This is the part, so when Joseph said that criticize a land for all as a continuation of something that has failed. I think that this is very misaccurate, Joseph, because the two-state solution as it was proposed by Oslo is definitely something different than what is proposed by a land for all, because they're adding a confederation element to it. So it's not necessarily, but one can argue that not doing anything and just doing what the IPC recommends is a continuation of what's existing now, where you're having negotiation, where you're having discussions while settlements are expanding, while Palestinians are losing their land. So one thing that I think that's important, and maybe these Thabit and Oren can say, is that the situation of border may not seem important, but I'm a Palestinian from Jerusalem, but I'm living in the US. But the concept is that we feel like our land is being we're losing the carpet beneath our feet. The border is a very important thing because number one, it established our future existence. It establishes our security, that there's going to be something left for us, that there's going to be something there. Where, for example, now you have you're having now settlements being built in Area B. Settlements are now being, there's I think 5 settlements being now built in Area B that are being reestablished. So this is the reason why it is essential, because we have an active occupation. We have a settlement movement right now that's very active and that is succeeding. So if these are not addressed, then I don't see how any solution, whether speaking or dialogue or anything, is not going to address these concerns, because it's very important to Palestinian people.
Addressed by whom?
Thank you. Just a minute. We have another one question, and then I will give you the opportunity to respond to all questions. Lynn Bennett.
Len Bennett, I'm in Canada, I'm in Ottawa. First thing, you, Rula, and Tibet both use the term Jewish supremacy. I am over 80 years old. I have never in my life heard one Jew use the terminology Jewish supremacy. I find that people who hate Jews use that term as a sledgehammer. And that's not something that Jews carry. That's something their enemies carry. I want to talk also, don't talk about apartheid. In my country, that's considered anti-Semitism. And because it's not true and my government does not accept it. And we talk about international law, and most of us don't know what international law is. International law says that every square inch from the river to the sea of Israel is Israel. This is was certified by the League of Nations, and it's in the Charter of the United Nations. So every country in the world has signed the United Nations Charter, which says that what was promised to Jews under the mandate for Palestine is irrevocable, and ordinary laws or ordinary motions made at the United Nations or the UN Security Council cannot override the charter. So every square inch of Israel is Israel. So there are no settlers. They are merely Israeli residents. They don't live in settlements. They live in town and villages, the same as I do here in Canada. And the Jews have been, or the Zionists, I'll say, were incredibly generous. I mean, the population of the Palestinian mandate doubled during the period of the mandate. The Jews, the Arabs did not call themselves Palestinians back then. They called themselves Egyptians and Syrians and from wherever they came from. The Jews had no reason to accept the 1947 partition plan, but they did simply to not have conflict and to get on building their country. There've been numerous offers to share the land with the Arabs, whether you want to call yourself Palestinians or Egyptians, it doesn't matter to me, it's not my business. And they've been rejected. And Israel was foolish and generous by signing the Oslo Accords, because that allowed the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which was a pure terrorist organization that started civil wars in Jordan and Lebanon and blew up planes. They should never have been allowed into the country, and they formed the basis of the Palestinian Authority. And that was a big mistake. And that was Jewish generosity. I haven't seen an ounce of Arab generosity in any
Okay.
case.
All right.
Okay.
Bunch of
Thank
lies is
All right.
Israel.
Okay, good. We have another one question, the last one.
Dermatologist choose Dove. The Dove Beauty Bar is gentle, it not only cleans, hydrates my skin. As a dermatologist, I want.
Yoela Harshefi has had her hand up from the beginning.
The #1 bar dermatologist.
Yoela Harshefi has had her hand up from the
Joella.
beginning.
Joella,
Smarter, more efficient route.
please.
So you can deliver more value to your customer.
Who's speaking
Fast,
there?
reliable, perfectly.
You have to unmute yourself.
United States Postal Service. Psoriasis really necessary. Try. hope,
Israel,
fail.
mute
No one
yourself.
can suffer like that. I started.
Israel
taking
Aroni, can you
5
mute yourself?
years.
Israel, you need to unmute yourself.
Mute yourself.
Joella,
Don't use it, you're
Harshefi,
allergic to ghost
please.
I think that I'm unmute.
An increased risk of infections, some serious, and a lowered ability to fight them may occur.
Please,
You
all-
have to mute.
Infection or symptoms,
You have to
or
mute
vaccine or
yourself.
plans.
Can you mute your microphone?
Okay, it's okay now. Joella Harshefi? We don't hear you.
Yoela, at the bottom
Speak a
left
lot,
of your
Steve.
screen. Yoela, at the bottom left of your screen, it says unmute and mute. Hit that button. The bottom left of your screen, Yoela.
Maybe
Choose
Rula
the
can
microphone.
unmute her. Maybe Rula, you can unmute her, no?
No?
איפה שיש ציור של מיקרופון, יואלה, איפה שיש ציור של
אוקיי,
מיקרופון,
אוקיי.
תלחצי על, הנה.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was trying all the time, it didn't work. The discussion was extremely interesting, but it was not to the point. We are missing the most important change in Israel. Today is a fateful day for this country. If we are disregarding what is happening today, we are missing the biggest opportunity of changing the fate of the Israelis and the Palestinians. We have to concentrate on the enormous change that is happening today and try to understand how we can harness it to change the fate of Palestinians and Israelis. On this we should concentrate, and this we should try to understand. It is 1 in 100 years opportunity. Please let us not miss it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I will refer to our contributors, Joseph, Thabit, and Oren. Please try to choose one question from the audience.
I would love to start because I'm
and
going to do
please,
it in 20 seconds.
Thabit, please, Thabit,
Okay.
please, before we start,
Yeah,
I would like to give you
20 seconds.
all of you 2 minutes, please. I have another appointment and we should, in few minutes, end the session. I'm sorry.
We have to have dinner too, we have to have dinner.
I will have it in 30 seconds even. Yoela, I agree with you. Something is happening in the Israeli society, and hopefully it's gonna lead and gonna stop the annexation of Palestinian territories and not to limit it to the very small important things. So I agree with you. Something is taking place right now today even, okay? And we should support the protest. Hopefully we'll have more just and secular, more just and democratic Israel, first of all. Shlomo, sorry, what's the name of the person that just talked to me from Kada? Len, Jewish supremacy is something, it's not something really that we are feeling that. I know that it's very difficult for you to hear that. I would like to invite you to visit Israel and visit me to show you the Jewish supremacy as it is. Can you imagine Canadian government now putting a law and you are discriminated against? And there is dozens of laws in Israel that giving the Jewish supremacy, okay, the Jewish people, just because they are Jews, okay? And I am the citizen of Israel. I am part of the homeland. I am discriminated against. Please, when you come to Israel next time, call me. I would love to meet with you.
Thank you, Thabit. Oren?
Okay, just a response to what Joseph said. Confederation was never tried. He said our solution was tried. I think Nasir already said it was never tried. It's a totally different formula. It's not a two-state solution by separation. It's a method of integrating the country, economy, environment, freedom of movement. It's never been tried before, while maintaining the political rights, especially of the Palestinians. The Israelis' political rights are overdone. So think about it. It's never been tried before, and we're following some areas of protracted conflict like Bosnia, like Canada, like the European Union. After huge wars, they decided confederation. You keep your national rights, but you have shared space. And I think that's really, really important. I'm not going to answer Len. It's totally off the ball. The United Nations, you cannot rely on the United Nations decision, and then the United Nations decided about 50 times something else, and you ignore it. You stay with what happened in 1922 or whatever. So let's not go there. It's totally ridiculous. Everybody, including the Israeli government, Begin, Rabin, recognized the Palestinian right for self-determination. So let's leave that aside. I totally agree with Yoela. There's something big happening in Israel. There's huge movement. Yesterday, we went to Jerusalem with 80,000 people walking to Jerusalem. Yesterday, also in Beersheba, there was 10,000 people. In Tel Aviv, 200,000 people calling democracy. Now, they're meaning democracy for the Jews. Imagination is not extending to the Arabs, but this is our role as agents of political equality. When everybody for 6 months, people are calling in the street, whatever the Jabha, whatever the Hadash movement of Arab Jewish equality, which is basically a Palestinian party. I don't know how you say it in English, but in Hebrew, it's Chazit LeShivyon v'Shalom. They're calling it everybody in the street. Gideon Sa'ar, all the people, Libor Livnat, equality and democracy, equality and democracy. Now we have to find a way, and we're trying it very hard. We have a Gush Neged Kibush. We're actually quite a few tens of thousands of people that's standing there talking about the occupation cannot coexist with democracy. And this is an opportunity that through that, I hope the confederation idea, which protects the rights of the Jews and gives the right to the Palestinians in a new sort of united homeland, through that, hopefully an agenda would strengthen and lead us to reconciliation.
Thank you very much, Oren. Joseph, the last 2 minutes.
Thank you. The difference between creating a common government and not creating the common government is $100 million. With $100 million, we can have the common government created. We can create the election online. We can recruit parliament members, Palestinians and Israelis together. The Palestinians and the Israelis are not a monolithic society. You will have enough Palestinians and enough Israelis to vote, and enough Palestinians and Israelis to be elected. It is a possibility. We are not precluding all your solutions. We are saying that you should not preclude ours, because if you truly want peace, then you should say every solution should be accepted and pushed for, as long as it is a good solution for peace. Regarding what's going on in Israel right now, it is about lack of democracy. Israel is not a democracy. A Jewish state is not a democracy. It does not have a constitution, and it does not have a constitution for a reason. Ben-Gurion said in the Declaration of Independence that Israel will have a Jewish state will have a declaration, a constitution by October 1st, 1948. We are 75 years later, and it does not have a constitution, because you cannot create a constitution for a Jewish state. You cannot, a Jewish state is, like Tabet said, is oxymoron with the constitution, and therefore Israel is now at a breaking point. What we are offering is a constitution for the whole area. I suggest you read it at ipconfederation.org, and you'll see that it is a constitution for everyone based on democracy. Democracy is not based on nationalism or religion. It is democracy is secular by nature. It is the separation of religion from government, and this is what we are proposing. So I thank you so much, and I want to invite you. We are conducting simulations upon simulations, and you'll see how it works. And I know that you did not agree with me, but I invite you maybe as a speaker in our next in one of our next simulations, and I will give you an opportunity to Rula to explain why you do not agree with it, because we had guests upon guests coming in with negative attitude, and then they walk out with positive attitude. So Rula, will you be willing to come to one of our simulations?
It will be my pleasure, and it's the time to thank you for this invitation and for inviting all of us for this discussion.
The same for Tabet, by the way.
Thank you for Tabet and Oren, and thank you all our audience, and see you in other
Thank you.
opportunities.
Dr. Thabit, if I can just say something, is there a way for Palestinians that like live outside the country to be more active with Land for All? Because I've not been successful in trying to like see much of the stuff that's going on.
You can give me, I can give you Oren's email address and Tabit's, and
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Joseph.
sure.
Thank you for
Write to me
everybody.
with
Great
the file,
discussion.
yeah.
Thank you. Let's
Thank
hope
you.
for peace.
Bye-bye.
Let's work for peace.
All